Hello, everyone, and welcome to C-Suite Talks 2024. We speak with industry leaders, introducing you to some of the most interesting people and businesses today. We're focused on women, money, and power, as well as diversity in all areas. I am Beth Hilbane, co-CEO of C-Suite, and with me today is...
I'm Dianne Gubin, co-CEO, along with Beth. Happy 2024. This week, we are so happy to speak with Laura Coffey. Laura is a board director, a CFO. She's a top woman in retail. She's an advisor. She's a financial executive. She's the full package. So Laura's background, she has been the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer for the Vitamin Store. And earlier to that, she was the EVP of E-commerce and Business Development with Pure One. She's also held leadership roles in Alcon and KPMG and received her degrees from the University of Texas. Laura currently serves as a board member and on the executive committee and audit committee for the Community National Bank and Trust of Texas. Welcome, Laura.
Yay! Thank you. It's so good to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes. So Laura was actually on a committee, on a panel that we did at the New York Stock Exchange, and that's where we had the wonderful opportunity to meet her. So thank you, Laura, for being on the podcast too.
Sure. Welcome the opportunity to do it. It's fun.
So, Laura, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your background and how your career has progressed to kind of level set, and then we'll jump right into some of the key areas.
We don't want to know how you got on a board, so get us to where you went first.
Super. So I started in finance. I was an accounting major, and I did all the fun accounting and financial things that helped me be an SEC financial expert, which is always very helpful from a board perspective. But I was hand selected to start PureOne.com, which was a great opportunity for me to go and get some operational experience, did some merchandise planning. Both of those items, whenever I went to look for a board seat, ended up being very beneficial to have something outside of just the financial role and to actually have something that was broader. And I always call myself an operationally focused CFO because I've been able to do financial work as well as understand the business from an operational standpoint. I think that adds value to any board when you've got a toolkit that you can pull from whenever you're being asked for thoughts and guidance.
Oh, that's wonderful. So how did you move from Pier 1, which I loved that store, so sad when it closed. They had the best candles, to the vitamin shop?
Yes. So Pier 1 went bankrupt in 2020, the dreaded COVID year. That was their year. They actually didn't make it through it. And I got an opportunity to move to New York, and I live here part-time and live in Fort Worth the other part-time, and started as the CFO there. So I took all my operational experience and landed back in a financial role and was the chief financial officer there, doing public company reporting and things that we had going on. And it was a great opportunity to be there. Had many colleagues that I'd worked with in my past life. And it was a fun adventure to spend a new chapter of my life outside of Texas.
Fun. And then, okay, so here you are in these large corporate environments, and then how'd you get on a board, especially bank board?
So yeah, that was interesting. So when I was an auditor at KPMG, in my way back years, I audited banks. And so that gave me an advantage. I hadn't really realized that it was even in my toolkit. You don't realize what's going on until somebody calls it forward. But right in March of 2020, the dreaded year of COVID, I got a phone call from a gentleman that was stepping down as a board seat and said, I think you would be great to replace me in this board. At the time, I was told, it was very male dominated. There was no females on the board, and they needed a financial expert that could be the audit chair. So right off the bat, it wasn't like, come join the audit committee. It was, can you be our audit chair of this bank, and start anew? So it was a great, the interview process was short because of COVID. I drove down to have the one-on-one interview, but I was actually out of town, out of the country, during that COVID time period. Whenever I got the phone call and said, if you're interested, we're going to stick with you. We're not moving forward. We're not doing a lot of interviews. So I lucked out because I had the banking experience. They were really trying to expand their digital banking. So having done PureOne.com was hugely beneficial to tie together the audit experience I had. I could be an SEC financial expert. They were growing. The bank was growing, year after year. And I stepped into the audit chair, and I've been there for 3 years and love it ever since. Loved it ever since. It's been great.
Terrific. So basically, you got this through your network.
Got it through my network, which is, I can't stress enough that, 9 times out of 10, they say that that's how you land one of those roles is through your network. But I wasn't out there pursuing it at the time. I just got a phone call randomly, February of 2020 saying, hey, this is something we'd really like for you to consider. And I'm like, sure, this is great timing, because I knew Pier 1 was starting through its demise.
Yeah, they always say the reason why the CFO community moves a lot is because they know all the skeletons in the closet.
That's true.
And it does seem to be they do move a lot.
Right.
In your board role, what have been some of, would you consider, challenges or lessons that you've learned that you would like to share with others that are pursuing corporate board roles?
Right.
Yeah. So lessons or challenges, it was difficult at first being the only woman in the room. That's a challenge when you have to, and especially a very well-established board. Many board members are long tenured. You have to remember that they've been there, they don't give up these board seats easily. They're cherished and they're well spoken for. And so I would say coming in as the new kid on the block is always the first challenge you present. And then if you're the female woman on the block, it's a little bit more challenging. But you have to remember, you were asked to be there for a reason. You were invited to be there because you have an expertise, or you have something that board thinks that you can add value to. So even though they're very well connected, these people know each other. They've known each other for potentially 5, 10, 15 years, because board roles can last that long. You've got to get through that. We've had some conversations about acquisitions. Those are always a little challenging. What's the structure of the bank going to be pre and post the acquisition? So be prepared to do some work. Be prepared to have thoughts and opinions about the growth trajectory of whatever business you're on, and challenge the CEO that's sitting at the table. Sometimes they may not be thinking about growth. They may not be thinking about shareholder value. That's what you're there for. You're there to return value to shareholders. And my bank is private, but it's still, there are shareholders to that bank, and that's what we're there to serve.
Interesting.
Wow,
And
amazing.
what's your time commitment like for someone who hasn't been on a board? As many of our women within C-suite, they're looking for this. How much time do you put into this?
That's a great question. I think it really varies, whether it's a private board or a public board. The bank boards typically meet more frequently than other boards. They meet monthly, which is a little bit more commitment in time, but our meetings are shorter. So we don't go for a 2-day stint where you have the audit committee, governance, and all that. We vary our audit committee, governance, exec committees all throughout the year. So I would say in any given month, it's about 8 hours, which if you were to take 3 months at a time, it'd be close to 24 hours of just time in front of people. That's probably what getting close to what you need to commit for studying the materials. Because sometimes the documents you get are 40 pages, and sometimes they're 400 pages of stuff to look through. So you have to be prepared. If you don't go in prepared for each meeting, it's pretty clear those board members that haven't read ahead or have taken the time to talk about the topics, because it makes a much better, you're a better board member if you take the diligence to spend the time looking through all the materials that are provided. You're not there to go through the meeting to read the materials. You're there to comment on what's been presented to you and how do you change the business.
Okay. No, that's very good. That's very good. Do you see, I know you probably would, but do you see other women on boards recommending other women for board positions? Do you see that networking happening?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that. We actually have a second female. She actually came on the same time I did, which was great. I wasn't the only one walking in. She was recommended by someone that was on the board. But I'm always, when I'm on on the board I'm on, I'm always looking to see, is there another opportunity for another female to join? We haven't really turned over much because the time, like I said, the time that you're on the board typically can be a long tenure. But the networks that I've continued to try to nurture have been those where women are on board seats. And a lot of times you'll hear, through the grapevine, hey, there's this opening over here. Have you thought about it? It's not for me. I did get a reference the other day for another bank board. that bank did not want a person on the board who already had a bank. So sometimes you can double up industries and sometimes you can't. It really depends on the bylaws of the specific company you're working in. Because I also met another lady who was in insurance, and she was on 4 different insurance company boards. So, I mean, I think it really depends on the industry and if they're open to letting you be a part of it. But women do seem to recommend other women. I think it's a matter of that's who their network is. And that's who they surround themselves with. Like at the C-suite, we surround ourselves with very capable, aspiring women who want to be next steps. So I think that's who you recommend, or those that you personally know.
That's fabulous.
For
So
sure.
what are you currently pursuing? Where are you in your career, and what are you
Do you
hoping to
want
do
more
as your
board
next step?
positions? Is that
Yeah,
what you want
so
to
I'm
do?
in transition right now. I'm looking for my next. Well, I'm looking for those, yes, and I actually am applying here or there. The one best advice I got that I don't know if I shared this when we had the session at the NYSE is, if there's an opportunity that you see and you may not check all the boxes, no one's going to check all the boxes. So
So true.
don't shy back from putting your name forward and trying to do the application or moving forward with it, because no one's going to check it all. And what you have to do is you have to tie the story together of how it works for the bank or the board you're trying to get on. Me being on that bank board, I had totally forgot about auditing banks until I was sitting in the boardroom interviewing. And then you have to tell your story. So I was unprepared to get that phone call back in 2020. It was my first board that was a for-profit board. I'd done not-for-profits. But yeah, I'm currently looking for other board seats. I've applied for a couple, and I didn't check all the boxes that you need to check, but you tell
That's
your
okay.
story. You tell your
Yeah.
story as to why it's important, whether you've seen activist shareholders. You can add value if you've seen it and done it and they're experiencing that. So you just got to kind of remember all the things you've encountered over your career and how does that add value for what they're looking for. They want to hear what you can add to the board, not what you think you can add. They need to hear what they're looking for and how you add to that.
Right, right. So Beth and I had the opportunity while we were in New York to speak at a women's conference that was in the financial sector. And women came up to us afterwards and said, we never even thought that I could be on a board. So for women who maybe are concernedly trying to get on a board later in their career, besides the network, what else would they do? Maybe certifications, etc., or do you think it's more random, like where I got to this point in my career and I got a phone call?
Yeah, well, I do think that there are certifications you can do, because the number one thing you have to have is you have to have your board documents pulled together. If you haven't already pulled together a board resume as well as a board bio, those are 2 things you must have whenever you go to apply, because they're not your normal resume. And they're, and how often do you have a picture taken with your bio done? And there are people out there that are professionals that can help you with that. If you don't even know where to start, you can get some help. I recently updated all of mine because I wanted it fresh. I had done it 3 years ago, but I wanted it fresh and new. And mine just, hot off the presses, came off the presses I think I signed off
And
on
you
it on
updated
Monday.
your photograph?
I updated my photograph. I updated my
That's
LinkedIn.
good.
And that's important too. Your LinkedIn must reiterate what your board resume says and what your board profile says, your board bio says. These 3 documents have to live in harmony, because those are important to make sure that they tell your story. But certifications can definitely help. Over the past year, I did get certified. I thought about going to the Harvard certification that they just had in December. I just couldn't make that work. But there are multiple ways to go out there and continue to be a certified risk director. Or there are different programs. And if you join C-Suite or some organization like C-Suite, they'll be able to help you guide that and show you the way of how to, what do I need to be prepared? The first thing you should start working on, if you're thinking about it, is start putting together your story. And if you get a professional to help you, they'll help weave the story for you. What are you good at? Are you good at revenue driving? Are you good at transformations? Are you good at integrations? They'll help pull that information out of you and help guide you with what that looks like.
Yeah, that's really good advice because I
Yeah,
think,
it is.
Diane and I both got our certification. And as I went through and created my board bio, I was remembering all these things I've done. And you forget about them or you kind of push them
Right.
aside
And
and you're
it's
like,
just
wow,
positioning your skills in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
right?
It's one of those things that you want to have some highlights so that you kind of stand out a little bit, or you can see what you bring to the table. Because remember, if they're interviewing for board roles and it's totally independent and there is no connection and somebody didn't refer you, it's this one sheet of paper that's got to stand out, and it's got to not be in a resume form that's got a ton of information that's too hard to read through. It's got to be the bullet point spotlight, a well done professional photograph. You got to put your best foot forward. There's not many of these roles out there. They don't come up often. The other thing I would be prepared for, they're hard, there are sometimes retirement ages. So as people get
Mhm.
older, you have to be able to, sometimes you may only have 5-10 years left to be able to serve on a board. So the earlier you start, the better. And the one thing that my coach kind of taught me that was helping me with my stuff was don't discount not-for-profit boards. I was a chair of a not-for-profit. I was a chairman for 3 years. I was also the chair of their governance. They work if they're a large not-for-profit, they work very much like public and private company boards, that they need all the diligence around it. And you're gaining knowledge. And that stuff is important even on your board bio to include that. So
Well, and they do, some of those positions do pay as well.
they
It
do.
just
Some of them
depends.
do.
Yeah. Yeah, some of them do. So are you also, besides looking for a board position, are you looking to work for another very large Fortune 500, 1000?
Like
What else?
Yeah,
like
I am currently in the process of narrowing down a couple of opportunities, and I am looking for my next role as a CFO. And so I want them to be, if not public company now, maybe going to be public in the near future, or um, but I'm pretty open to what it looks like. But just something I always say, if you work for good people and a good brand, and then you have a growth strategy, it's going to set you up for success. So that's kind of what my next step is.
so
Oh, that's
true.
great. So how
So
do you promote diversity, equity, inclusion in your roles that you have, both the
yeah,
board
Yeah,
and
yeah.
in
Especially
corporate?
you were the only woman walking in the door.
correct. Correct. So when I was at the Vitamin Shop, we started a women's driven group where we were bringing in to the company. We sponsored everybody to join a couple of women only professional organizations. And then we would have quarterly meetings that came in and kind of coached the team on how to speak in public speaking or whatever it might be. But to focus your efforts on these women with such talents, um, and may not look, it may not even just be women. It could be any individual that seems different and not actually in the right place. Um, I always say that you should step up and help these people find their way. And so we've done in my past life, I've done some special assignments where we created task force and we let the women run it inside the organization. We let our vice presidents pull together the topics, educate the team. And those were some of I loved sitting on the sidelines. We were there more as coaches versus driving the agenda. And it was really nice. The best thing I heard was a quote recently in a conversation I was having. And somebody said, if there's not a seat at the table, bring your own chair. Because sometimes they don't have a seat at the table for you. You've got to figure it
So
out.
Laura,
Oh,
can you just, yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes you have to make your own space. Sometimes you have to bring your own chair if the seat's not available. So keep working on that. Don't take no for an answer.
I
That's
love that.
fabulous.
That's amazing advice for the next generation of business leaders for sure. Don't take no for an answer.
Yeah.
And that comes back to something Beth and I are working on, which is more sales training for some of our women. Just learning how to not take that no. How do you come back around, right?
Yeah. It's one of those things you have to, I think women sometimes shy away from difficult conversations. Not all women, but sometimes it's a little hard to put yourself out there.
Yeah,
But
conflict.
I think the more you do certifications, the more you have your documents ready, the more you continue your network, all of that just adds to your confidence level. And it also just makes it not seem as impossible. But
Right.
Sitting at home and not doing those things, you're not getting any closer. So you've got to take some steps. You've got to go ahead and, there are groups that do board assessment. Are you ready for a role? Are you not ready for a role? So I would say financial experts have a little bit easier of a time because if they're an SEC financial expert, that helps because companies are looking for that. But they're always looking for diverse things. IT people sometimes have opportunities because of all the cyber conversation.
Definitely in cyber.
HR right now would be a big place to, if I were in HR, I would focus my efforts on, like ESG initiatives and how could I become a better ESG, so pick your lane of what you think you can really add to your toolkit and study up on those things and add those to your toolkit. Because I met a lady the other day. She goes, I'm going all after ESG. I'm going to learn more than anybody else around me so that I can add value to a board when I'm needed.
Wow.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
So what advice would you give as we wrap this up? What advice would you give the next generation of women business leaders?
I loved the seat at the table. Pull it up.
Yeah, pull it up. Never stop trying new things. Never stop. Just even if you think that, like, this is my first podcast, I'm so excited, it's not something that I would have normally done. So,
That's great.
I spoke at the NYSE. I wouldn't have normally done that. So never stop trying new things because those new things help you grow and give you another step.
Well, that was through C-Suite. Yay.
I know
New York Stock
we
Exchange
lost Dianne a minute, but
we did lose Dianne.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
whatever.
okay.
Yeah.
So we want to thank you, Laura Coffey, for everything. We love having you as part of C-Suite. We love having you as a member and part of the C-Suite circle. We want to thank our sponsors, Google, Paul Hastings, City National Bank, Manette, Uncle Nearest, which is a female-owned whiskey company, Interpublic Group, and then obviously Amplify Professional Services, which Dianne runs as CEO. And then Dianne, you want to bring us home?
Sure. Hit the subscribe button on Apple or anywhere you get your podcast. Leave us a review, a good one, please. Follow us on social media. We're on LinkedIn, lots of LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. And send us an email. Actually, send it to Beth at C-Suite, CSWEET.org. And of course, our website is C-Suite, CSWEET.org. And, do become a member or a sponsor. We welcome you. And thank you again, Laura. This was awesome.
It was fun.
And Laura, how can people find you? Do you want them to find you through LinkedIn or?
Yeah, just find me through LinkedIn. Tell me you heard this podcast and you want to connect, and I'm pretty open about connecting. And in fact, I've done a few personal phone calls for people that have asked, for some advice on getting on boards, and I've actually taken those calls and done them. So
that's generous.
So fabulous.
Thank you.
That's so nice of you. Okay.
Thank you.
Happy New Year, everyone. It's going to be fabulous.
Thank our listeners. Thank you, listeners. We appreciate you very much. Thank you.
We do. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.